Welcome to this modding tutorial for Barotrauma. Timestamps have been added for your convenience.
Before we get into jobs, we need to know something first. Translation files. The reason is that jobs utilize only translation files for the names and descriptions. And how convenient, the latest talents for such jobs also do the same. So let's learn how to do that first. This first block controls what language you are making a translation of, so make sure you change this to match your needs. Leave this in false, not entirely sure what it does, but it seems important. Then, inside of that block, start adding your text with this format. The first part of the block is what type of translation it's going to be. In our case, we want a job name, job description, talent name, and talent description. The text itself will be inside of this block. There are many more types, and if you want to know which they are, you can find them in the vanilla game translation files. After the type, you can assign a matching ID to the corresponding item you are making a text for. In this case, we would use the ID for our job and talents. Finally, add your translation to the file list. Translations are listed as texts. Making the job itself is not hard. The complexity comes in the form of the latest addition of talents, but one thing at a time. Right now, let's make a job XML for the job to be integrated into the game. This works like anything I've shown you before. In the file list, it's listed as jobs. Now, change the properties of your job to the one you want to create. Remember that the name and descriptions are handled via translation files. Here, just set the ID for your job. The following properties are unique to job. Min and max number are used for the auto-assignment of roles. Each submarine will always have the minimum number while avoiding filling above the max number. Note that you can have above the max number if there is too many bots. Initial number is how many of this job a campaign will start with. If you add this, then the next campaign you create will always have this number of crew with this particular job. If you don't add this, then it won't start with any of this job as part of the initial group. Vitality multiplier is not actually a multiplier, it's how much more or less health this class will have. Idle behavior means what the NPC will do when has no orders. Patrol and stay in hull are self-explanatory, but active means that the NPC will, according to its job priorities, do the chores around the submarine to its own initiative. Price multiplier means how expensive the job is to hire. It doesn't affect the prices at the shop. Jobs have a constant value from which they get the hiring cost. This multiplier means how much higher or lower this constant value will be. These two blocks control the icons for the job, the latter for the small icon seen in hull monitors and the former seen next to the user's name. Skills handle the random number of the job's proficiency. Primary just means that this skill is highlighted when you are looking at jobs. Item sets define two things. One is the variation of the job, and the second is what subclass spawns with. You can name them and give them custom descriptions at the text file, by distinguish them with numbers after the proper ID. Two important bits. 1. This does not replace the job translation, so you still need them. And 2, from what I can tell, this is no longer displayed, and is not really necessary for your mod to work, so create this only if you want to give some detail to your mod. While at item sets, here are important bits you need to know. You should always make them spawn with ID cards. To make an item spawn with stuff inside of them, use this format, making the item into a full block and inside it add the container items. Equipped should be used for items you want your job to be using right off the bat, like ID cards, headsets, outfits. If you don't want to clutter the preview items, add show preview false. And finally, but most importantly, outfit. This property is crucial and does more than just set the item as an outfit. This also dictates what item is used as the highlight of the job, or in other words, how do you see it when you open the job's options. So, if you plan on making multiple item sets, remember, outfits must be different. If you set the same item as outfits for both, the bottommost will not show up. Finally, try to limit yourself to 3 different item sets. The reason being, if you add too many, they might not be selectable in the job menu. Moving from item sets, portrait clothing is used for the color for the icon at the bottom left of the screen. And finally, autonomous and proper orders dictate a big part of this job's AI. The first handles how the NPC behaves in its active idle behavior, and the last one handles the quick call for the orders menu. After doing all of this, your job is now inside the game. But wait, what about the talents? Well, talents are handled in a completely different XML. You'll need one XML to create the talents themselves, and another one to connect them and organize them into a tree, and finally one to handle its special afflictions. Let's first head over to the creation of the talents. The first step is as simple as to just make a talent block with an identifier property. Then set its description path. All that fancy word means, make sure this matches this. You can have multiple descriptions, and if you want to change the color of a specific word, enclose that word into brackets in the translation XML, and in the talent add this line. In value you can put any string of words of something like this, which is just the path for the description. It will display whatever it finds in that path. Finally, the color uses this format. I don't know all the available colors, but I do know that you can set red, green, and orange. After that, it is a good time to set the icon. Uses the same format as the
Stop right there, criminal scum!
They want to know how to make the talents functional. Cut the styling and get there. Okay. Just one thing about the icons. You can use sheet formatting. Sheet works the best as you will usually make more than a few icons and it will save you a lot of time. Alright, time to move on to the functionality. Disclaimer. Everything in this section is from my testings and findings. It might not be 100% accurate to what it really does. To start setting the ability of the talents, you have 2 options. Ability Group Interval and Ability Group Effect. One means it will check for the conditions and update the values in real time, while the other is a single time effect trigger. How would you know which one to choose? Reverse engineer the existing talents and see if there is one that does something similar to what you want to do. See which they used and go for that one. I know it's not a satisfactory response, but with the limited knowledge, this is the most honest and fruitful answer I can give you. Regardless of which you choose, the next thing you can set is a condition. There are a few conditions and I'll try to find as many as I can and post them in the screen. But do keep in mind that not all of the conditions are valid for Ability Group Effect and Ability Group Interval. If you get an error to console about the conditions, try changing this around. Finally, the abilities block. This one handles the effects applied. Again, I'm going to look for some of the abilities you can apply and set them on the screen. There are way too many to list, and I'm not sure if I'll end up finding them all. Same as the conditions, not all might work with Ability Group Interval and Ability Group Effect. Same advice as before. Within the abilities block, you can also set status effects to you and or nearby allies or just creatures in general. Use this format for that. This first block indicates whether it is a single entity effect or effects to you and your allies. The next one is the container of the status effect, the same as this one. And finally, here goes the effects you want to apply. They work exactly as any other afflictions, though most of them will contain the type of on ability, as that means when the ability is triggered. As a closing note on abilities block, keep in mind that you can have multiple effects and abilities within. You can add complexity and functionality to your talent. Finally, if you want to set a certain recipe to go along with your talent chosen, add this line. And yes, you can have multiple of these. So that's it? Well, yeah. It might not look like much, but the real challenge comes from making these abilities work. In short, the difficulty of the talents will come on how unique you want yours to be. The more unique you want it, the harder it will be to implement, but the more unique it is, the higher the satisfaction if you manage to make it work. Now, Let's say you have all of your talents done. How do you connect them to your job? And how do you assign them to the talent tree? For that, let's head over to the talent tree XML. Start by making the main block and add a talent tree block after that. In here, set the job that's related to the talent. First question answered. Next up, add a sub-talent block. This is the first column of your talent. Add an identifier and add a talent options block. With it, add a talents option with the talents identifier. You can have multiple talents options, but I recommend to restrict yourself to 2. Same with the talents options block, but those can have up to 4. Repeat that process with the other 2 subtrees. And now let's move on to the translation file. Add the names for the talents trees using these formats. You've finally made and added your job and talents into the game. So what's next? Testing. A lot of testing. Here comes the last challenge. Being able to hire your crew. The way this works is each outpost has its own chance to have a stock of a certain type of crew. If you are somewhat experienced, you probably see the issue already. If not, don't worry, this is it. You have to override vanilla outposts so your custom job can be hired. To make an override, first create an XML, and the very first block, make sure it's an override. Don't forget to also close it. Then paste the main block of the item outpost affliction of whatever you want to change. Finally, copy the stuff you want to override. You must always paste the parents and any of the properties of the blocks linked to them, just to avoid problems. Finally, start doing your changes. In this case, we want to add our jobs onto the list of hireables. You add this override to your file list as if it was an item or affliction or whatever you are replacing. In our case, it is an outpost. Don't be frustrated if it doesn't work the first time. It is not common to reach an apparent dead end, or having to redesign a talent from the ground up. So my best advice I can give you is, if you're working alone, before you start crafting assets, make sure the functionality of the talent works. If you need a sprite, an item, or spawn something, apply an affliction, whatever it is. Use an existing asset from the game to make sure that it is possible. And once you are very sure it is, start doing the assets and adjust it until it becomes what you want it to be. Be ready to take breaks. It is possible that you won't make it all in a single run. Take your time, don't overextend, and don't overwork. The more heated up you are, the less likely you will find an answer to your current blockade. As always, if you have questions or reach an impasse in your endeavor, I'll do my best to answer them and help you surpass it. Best of luck in your project.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, and if you enjoyed it, consider subscribing for similar content. Have a fantastic day.